And sometimes I just imagine like Brian being out at like some event with Barack Obama in Chicago where his phone is just going crazy. There's like senators around him and he just like has to look and it's just a picture of your head.
Yeah, I remember one time I took a photo, like a selfie with this extremely attractive Asian girl that I was having sex with, this Asian playmate, and I woke up and there was probably 50 texts of Catfish making fun of her and calling her "Eat Honda" and just...
It wasn't just me. Don't point at just me.
It wasn't a great selfie. But, you know, you could reference the rest of her body of work on the internet to decide that she didn't look like E. Honda. But, I mean, you chose to go in on that while I was sleeping. And
But I think, Brian is the most civil out of all of us.
Do you guys ever click on the links Catfish puts in the chat, though?
No, he sends vines constantly.
They're all vines. They're all funny vines. I mean, sometimes there'll be like a crazy fight or something. I'm never going to send you something crazy like weird sexual stuff.
Like, I want to click on it. It's just... It's going to take like 3 seconds to load, and to be honest, that's a big commitment.
It's funny.
It exits one app and goes into the other.
Trust me, my vines are funny. This stuff, I have a good sense of humor, and that's what I like about the group chat. Is I think we're all on the same level humor-wise for the most part. That a lot of the stuff that we say or we think is funny, that we each will think is funny. So it's always funny to
general
get
public normally wouldn't laugh at the stuff we laugh at.
Oh, absolutely.
We've discussed and we've tried to bring other people into the group chat in the past, and it just didn't work at all because it's so hard for us to think of other people that are on quite the same wavelength.
That's what happened to poor Micah, because Micah, who is you know, in my opinion, he's a really, really funny guy, but his humor
Micah is funny, yeah.
And he just didn't mesh with our personalities, and we couldn't handle him because he was just getting way too technical, nerdy BMX.
He was talking about like, oh, this stem looks exactly like a redneck. And I just flipped out, and I was like, don't bring that bullshit in this group chat. I don't want to hear you talking about what stem looks like what. You can go on fucking Bike Guide if you want to talk about that shit. This group chat is for sex and fights and zooming in on each other's faces, and that's it.
Do you feel like Catfish, I know like back in the day you said you might have invented the blog with catfish.com, but I feel like collectively we might have somewhat invented the group chat,
or even the iMessage in general.
Well, I just feel like we're just early adopters, and that's what I think it's hard for like people to come in late because we just have roots.
We've been doing it for so long. Yeah.
Are you guys members of any other notable BMX group chats?
No.
Because I have one with like most of the OSS guys, like Alfredo, Tate, you know, that whole crew, Craig, everything.
Too, but that's more of a business one.
True.
A couple neighborhood friends from back home that don't ride.
That talk about like what going down to the bar and
Red Sox.
Yeah.
The Red Sox go Sox.
But sometimes like I'll hear other people talk about their group chats, like other teams and stuff, and I'll just get like a tinge of jealousy, like, God damn, I should be involved in that one as well.
I saw a really funny meme that made me really chuckle. That it was a guy, it was like a guy like wanting to have sex with him. And he was looking at his phone. He's like, when your babe really wants to hit it, but you're getting roasted by the group chat. Like that, I could definitely relate to that.
Getting roasted in the group chat is definitely a real thing. All right, moving on past applauding our own group chat. Big news as of yesterday. X Games BMX Street is out.
Very, very interesting.
Catfish.
Very interesting.
Thoughts?
I don't know, man. It's kind of crazy because the thing that everybody needs to keep in mind, and that it's hard for a lot of us to grasp, is that the X Games, although it is the biggest, stage for BMX worldwide, it ultimately is also a TV show. You know, they have to.
100%.
And that's the hard thing for a lot of us to understand. And obviously, they've got to make cutbacks one way or the other. I think what confuses a lot of people with this one is that. I can maybe understand flatland going away. It's not really popular with BMX Street. It's obviously the most popular form of BMX.
That's why it's weird. It's because it's like, oh, you're telling us that this isn't popular enough for us, but that somehow like Park and Big Air still is.
Right.
And I get that from a TV perspective, Big Air probably makes a million times more sense. But you guys were told that it was just strictly ratings, right? Like, I mean, obviously, I don't think that anyone at ESPN gives a fuck what they put on air. It's just 100% like what is going to get some ratings. And
yeah, that's what I heard. I heard it was just based on ratings, and I guess the time that it aired wasn't like an optimal time for like people to be watching TV. It was like in the middle of the afternoon on a weekday and whatever. But I think that a lot. I mean, someone like ESPN, of course, like the people that don't ride, and I think that comes with anything that's like when people don't ride or they haven't ridden in the past, they don't really they don't fully get it. If you've ridden and you've like learned a trick, if you've fallen, if you've whatever, essentially bled for what we love to do, you get it more than you do, and that's what I think. Sometimes BMX riders have a hard time of having that separation between like us and someone like ESPN, you know, they care about numbers and stuff like that, whereas us, you know, we really care about like the growth of the sport and how BMX is perceived and all that kind of stuff. So it's a tough thing, you know, and I'd hate to see it go away, you know. I wish they would keep it, but I guess that's just how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, I guess the other weird thing to me was the fact that they're, I mean, as what we hear right now, they're still having Skate Street.
And that's what's weird is like, oh, you can't give us the 4 hours to do our
it just
verse.
sucks. You could put the Victoria's Secret fashion show on a Wednesday at 1 in the afternoon. It's going to get horrible ratings. So
Yeah.
you have no choice but to get horrible ratings when it's on at that time period. So it really never...
So our friends out there, Biz Jordan, who is no stranger to X Games. Biz has had some escapades in the X Games. So just so you know, when he's talking about the X Games, Biz, you want to tell everybody about your X Games story?
Which one?
The one I always ask you to tell people.
I flipped off the crowd.
Yeah.
Basically, I just I didn't like the jumps, and I was young and dumb, and I probably could have done easy tricks and won a lot of money when I was an idiot. But I just kind of dead sailed through them, and then went up the other roll in. Crowd was booing me, and I was like, and I went to turn around to go down to the next roll, and I was like, fuck it, and I was like, I'm gonna 7, and then I 7'd, and I flipped the crowd off.
But didn't Troy McMurray do that before you?
He did a 360 and flipped the crowd
Oh,
off.
so you one-upped him. Oh, very interesting.
No, but he did his mid 360, flipped the crowd off.
That's amazing.
That's
What were
sick.
the repercussions of that? Did they get pissed?
I never heard. My mom was bummed. That's the only thing I heard of it.
That's amazing.
BK, how many X Games appearances have you made?
Maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Something like that. Quite a few. The first one they ever did street, and then all the way through 2011, and then I think 2012 I was an alternate. But and then as well as the international ones, those were fun. They stopped doing those a while back, but when they did I guess they did them up till last year. But yeah, they did ones in like Dubai and Mexico City and Sao Paulo, Brazil, and then the LA ones. So they were all fun. You know, I think with X Games it was cool because it was this environment that it was kind of nice because they chose, you know, what was it, 12 guys, 10 guys, 15. I mean, it kind of varied every year, but all the dudes were legit, and and the cool thing about it was that I felt it was different from any other discipline was that they were all like, we're all friends, we all get along. And I thought that was such a cool thing. Like when you're sitting up on the deck and practice just felt like a session, you know, it didn't feel like you were practicing for the biggest event of the year. It felt like a session where everyone's like cheering each other on and like motivating each other, that's what got me psyched on BMX in the first place. When I was a young kid, I was like so familiar with like all these other mainstream sports where everyone's trying to kill each other or beat each other at whatever sport it is, and then BMX you see like guys cheering each other on. I was like, damn, that's pretty awesome because just the camaraderie, you know. But that's what I felt was awesome about X Games is that you get there and there's big money on the line, you know, whatever, but the courses were fun and everyone got along. And that was actually something that motivated me to start the bakery as well, because I was like, this is so cool because this is a discipline of BMX where everyone gets along. This might not be true in every other discipline. There might be like some weird beef or some weird, you know, guys that don't ride with each other or whatever.
Yeah.
Big Air hates each other, I bet.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I mean, it's unfortunate, but
I assume.
it's unfortunate because like I just look around at like all the other guys who are standing there at X Games and riding, and I was like, dude, all these guys I've either been on a trip with, or I would be perfectly comfortable saying like, yo, come to my house in Chicago and let's ride for a week.
See,
you know,
that's
stay
the
at
side
my
of BMX
place.
I think is so foreign to people, because I think especially people at competitions like that, X Games is the biggest one in the world. There's a winner and there's a loser, and it's hard for people to wrap their head around the fact that like, even though you're competing, you guys are still best friends. You don't want to, like, you want him to ride as well as he possibly can. You don't want him to crash. You don't want to, you know, sure, you want to ride your best. But I think that's the weird aspect of BMX that a lot of people don't get,
So,
you know, especially at that level.
Isn't it weird, don't you think, well, or at least I think, is that like it feels weird shoving street riding into this weird little box of like an event. It always has felt weird to me, and that's why I kind of feel weird. I don't feel anything about when they remove it, because it never seemed like it was an ideal fit in the first place. Like park riding, to me, is a little bit more like, I totally get why the average person watching this on TV likes it, and I think in a sense it makes more sense, because, you know, they're doing these crazy dirt jumping tricks or whatever, or not dirt jumping but jumping tricks over these jumps, and, you know, it makes sense to me that vert, like, probably is more appealing, or especially Big Air. Big Air is like the ideal BMX event for X Games, right? Like it's the
That's
easiest
America,
to comprehend.
yeah,
It gives them such a chance to just make stars. Like last year when I was watching it and they were just hyping Morgan up to death, and I was actually enjoying it watching it because I was like, this feels like a better contest than BMX Street. Like,
But
I
see,
don't
with
know.
that, I mean, I've always been on the fence about presenting something like that on a level at the X Games, because if a kid watches BMX Street on the X Games, he can relate to that. There are steps around the corner. I can't imagine somebody watching Mega Ramp and saying, I want to ride BMX like that, because where do you even start with something like that? You know, and that's the thing when I look at it. You know, any coverage is good coverage for BMX, and you know, when you have somebody like X Games that's, you know, trying to push street riding and show people that, hey, this is like a real thing, that's a good thing. And that's why I'm kind of bummed that it's gone.
That's what I've always thought, and I have heard this sort of cliche saying that like the higher you go in the air, the higher your ratings are on TV. Like that's just like this weird.
Seems to be true, huh?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
good
and there
motorsports.
probably is quite a bit of truth to that. But the thing that I was psyched about street riding is the accessibility and how everyone can relate to it, because almost everyone has walked up a flight of stairs, hung onto a handrail, like, you know, whatever. Like there's so many like elements that are around in everyone's everyday life that these dudes are riding bikes on. And I think where the discrepancy happens is maybe where it's just not explained. It's not explained right. And I think, you know, I look back to Biz. Do you remember the old X Games when they were on TV? They'd have like these little segments. They're so cheesy.
Explained?
Yes.
Yes.
BMX.
Yeah.
BMX explained. And
X up.
okay,
Yeah,
and show you
I-
from
when
the
the
beginning.
rider
me and you already rode. We all rode by that point, so we all thought it was super cheesy. But there's, you know, I bet to the general public, and even now, there's pros that we're watching. There's pros right now today that were watching those X Games back then as like little kids that never seen BMX before, that are now into BMX and that are pro bike riders. So it did have a certain, obviously, like validity. I don't know who actually enjoyed those, if they did actually make sense. But there's got to be a way to explain to the public what's going on,
Because
and how impressive it is.
Yeah,
Like,
that's the thing. It's
like how precise it is. You know, like, oh my gosh, like let's watch this again, because if he would have missed an inch that way or an inch that way, he would have knocked his teeth out. But no, he didn't. He rode away clean, and it was amazing. And you know, it's just things like that like I think maybe need to be clarified, but not in a cheesy way. So it's difficult. It's
Well,
not
I think
easy.
it's like as a BMX announcer, when I go to an event, a lot of times I try and approach it like none of these people have ever seen BMX before. And when I explain it to them, because if you're engaging your audience, if you go to a BMX contest and you're just sitting there watching, wow, this guy's going upside down, this is doing this. But if you have somebody that's explaining it to you, okay, look, this is what a tail whip is. A tail whip is when the bike is going around the rider. A decade is when the rider is going around the bicycle. An X-up was when his arm forms an X. So this fat dad that's sitting at the contest, he's sitting there watching, and he's like, oh, wait, he crossed his arms. In his mind, he's going, that's an X-up. He hears the announcer go, that's an X-up. I'm learning. You're engaging them. You have to walk them through it. And I think, like you said, people just still don't get BMX. They don't get it.
You know what the thing is, I think, is that the entire idea of like a cable broadcast of an action sports contest is an anachronism. Like it's going away. And like you were saying earlier, somebody was saying, is that Street League is not really bothering with the TV package anymore. They're just kind of moving online as well. I think that like moving forward, like it is awesome for BMX to get that big mainstream look. But I mean, I think that media itself is becoming more and more diversified, and I think something like the X Games is being pushed on all sides because they're being, asked to, to get ratings basically, and they have to, they're doing stuff like Call of Duty, and I mean that shows their true colors in a sense if that's what they're really about. But I don't think that was ever really in doubt. Like nobody ever really thought that ESPN cared that much
and
about
that's
our
the
little
other
thing anyway.
I don't want people
is.
to. I don't want people to stress it either, because I think that like this, it could be a good wake up call. This could be the spot where we see more local contests. We see where somebody else is going to fill that void. The Feast out of France, they're doing a World Series, and it wouldn't surprise me if they jumped on board and said, "Hey, we're going to tack on a street contest into this," and now boom, now you've got a World Series with a street contest to fill the void, because there's obviously dudes that are into competitive street riding. I think that the Rebel Jam last month in England was probably one of the coolest events we've ever had as far as street goes. Brian, you were a part of that.
Yeah.
Talk to a little bit about your involvement with that, because that had to be a really cool experience for you.
Yeah, this last year, so I got approached by Andy Zeiss, who runs Rebel Jam, and Nakeem actually both those guys, Andy Zeiss and Akeem, both run Rebel Jam and then Munich Mash. So 2 European street contests that were incredible. And they basically came to me and they wanted help as far as like course design, first of all, because they had seen the bakery and they were really psyched on that, but then also asking about formats and things like that. So it was really fun because I was like at the pulse of the organization of it, like how deciding how the course is going to be, and then also actually designing the course around the format and things like that. And so it was really interesting. And then Jeff Klugowitz, who's someone a good friend of mine,
shout out to Jeff K.
Yeah, the man. He's really good with building and design and stuff like that as well. So like I asked him, I was like, hey, do you want to help out with this as well? So him and I got to tag team the course designs for those, and just incredible to see how everyone uses it, because you design something in a certain way and to see how all the different riders use it. I mean, that's something I saw firsthand with the bakery. Like obviously we built the bakery and everyone came and essentially used it in a different way, and the way it was set up was that you could make your own setup, right. You could move shit around, and that was awesome because it was a whole nother set of creativity other than just the riding part of it. It's like, okay, you're not only going to ride this stuff, but then first create it and perform what you're going to perform. So it was like all that basically being seen by these guys who run these big events, and wanting some input. Now it was an honor. It was just so crazy to be involved and excited to be involved in more, as well as make more happen. Because going back to the X Games thing, I think what the void that I want to be filled, I think that X Games did, was introducing BMX to the public.
Absolutely.
I think that's great.
Absolutely.
That's great. But then there's the other half of me who loves to like do a nollie to gap to rail, which like the public's never going to understand. Like,
right.
But my friends, the dudes I ride with, will, they'll high five me afterwards and say how, that they're the ones who are going to like really respect that and understand it and whatever. And that's like really what makes me tick,
In a lot of ways, I think that action sports fit better in the X Games when they were in their more formative years, when the new trick of the year was a 900, and now things have gotten so technical, and like especially with Flatland, it's like even us as BMX riders, we don't know what the fuck they're doing when we watch Flatland. Like me, Biz, and BK could not name a single trick, and Catfish could probably name 2%. Like
I can name them all.
Okay, well,
it's pretty insane though. But I get what you mean. Yeah. Totally, and it's But yeah, I mean, I think really like we just have to like get into, just get back to like taking care of ourselves as much as possible, and just doing fun stuff that makes BMX look the way we want it to look as BMXers.
Yeah, I mean, so even if you compare a contest like BMX Street, and I've been to tons of BMX Street contests at X Games, but a contest like at the Rebel Jam, the big difference that I saw, and this is just coming from somebody take me out of the announcer fact, is that X Games is a little bit more strict. You've got your runs. You have to do it a certain way. At Rebel Jam, the energy was so much better because everybody was chilling. Every rider you looked at, they were just like having the time of their life. And I think when you're in an environment like that, you're going to get the best show possible. And I think that was the case that we saw in England.
Yeah, and that's something. So that it's tough to create that environment though, because you were at the Secret Recipe. Secret Recipe bakery event. The last event that the bakery had was, at the old facility, was basically what I envisioned as being one of the perfect contests, in that it felt like a session. So it was broken up into these, and Adam, you were there as well. Like it was broken
dope.
up. Yeah. It was broken up into these sections where these dudes, they were only limited to this one little section. So you just had guys like attacking like 1 or 2 or 3 obstacles, and crazy stuff was going down. But I remember like Jeremiah, for example, Jeremiah Smith was trying that feeble to 180 down whip down the red rail, and it was insane. And their time, and I even told you beforehand, I was like, okay, here's the format. Like all the guys, it's going to be 4 guys. They get 12 minutes. It's a jam. But I was like, keep it loose. Like if someone's trying something, whatever. That group probably lasted for like 30 minutes because everyone else was done riding, but everyone wanted to see Maya do that trick.
Right.
And sure, he tried it like 40, 50 times, but then got it, and it was perfect. And the whole place erupted. Yep. All of his competitors were like patting him on the back and hugging him and stuff, and like that's awesome.
That contest felt like a contest that a BMX rider thought up. Whereas X Games is like, this is this weird framework that we're fitting Simone into that, it just doesn't feel like it makes a lot of sense.
But it's something that's been there for so long. We've grown up with it, and it's every year, and to some extent, it's a weird thing that to the lay person, that is the level that they judge you on. You know, oh, you ride BMX, you're in the X Games. You know, that's what they know as far as BMX. X Games is the best as you can get.
You know what I tell a lot of people that don't ride? I say, when I'm talking about when they ask like, oh, what's like your ranking and stuff like that, or what's, you know, how do they do it, like as far as like, do you just do contests or whatever? And I say, you know, I do some contests and go to a handful of them a year, and they're always fun, and it's a different challenge. It's like, can you do some stuff you're psyched on in that environment? But then I also turn to them and say, you know, some of the best BMX riders in the world don't compete at all. And to them, they're just like, you know, that's just mind-blowing to them. They're like, well, why wouldn't they? Like, why wouldn't they compete? And I'm like, they're just not into it. They don't function in that environment or whatever. They're just not that sort of competitive spirit, but they are some of the most talented, amazing bike riders in the world. And I said that's what kind of makes what we do special, and that's what makes it cool.
Question. What happened to the bakery after that contest? Because it shut down pretty much immediately. What was the situation that led to that?
Well, it was crazy. So with the first bakery, when I first created it, it was pretty kind of a crazy scenario, like
grimy.
It was just grimy. I mean,
scary.
the building basically had a roof over its head, and that's it, and electricity. But it had no running water. We just had porta potties in there. It was dirty. It was sketchy. It was like, I mean, just crazy.
And
it was also
abandoned
in
cars. They were like abandoned cars. Like you would go through this big door to get in. There was like a security guard, and you go, and there were just cars with dust on them. They looked like they'd been sitting there for years. Nobody touched them.
So there was all those old cars, but then in addition to that, it was an old bakery.
2 Chainz was there.
Yeah,
at least once.
2 Chainz filmed a video there. A ton of rappers, all the Chicago rappers filmed videos.
Shout out to King Al.
BK was blown away. He texted the group chat. He said, "You would not believe how many blunts 2 Chainz smoked. It was insane. Like he doesn't smoke weed, but he was especially. He's like, there was a guy standing there rolling blunts the whole time and just passing them to him.
The fact that he had an assistant just in charge of that was insane. But I mean, it was seriously, it was every rap video cliche present in front of my eyes. Like, you know, you think like, oh, you know, rap videos portray that, but is it actually like that? And that night I was like, oh, it's actually like that.
But then you moved up a little bit in the rap world because you moved into a warehouse that they film like a ton of the Chicago rap videos in, right?
Yeah. So sorry, going back to what happened to the second bakery. So I moved out of the first one because it just wasn't up to code, and eventually it was like kind of too good to be true. But it did last for 2 years, so that was a good thing. But had to move out and found a great space which was smaller and had like more poles, and it definitely wasn't space-wise as ideal as the first one, but a nice building and awesome visibility. I mean, like, it introduced me to so many awesome creative people because it was like cool, an artist. Yeah. It was an artist loft building where there was a ton of like creative, like-minded people under one roof. But I signed a lease and had all my, had dotted my I's, crossed my T's, and out of the blue, I kind of got screwed over on the lease. Basically, they said, you have to change the lease agreement and pay more money, or that's it. And it was like a very, very substantial increase in rent, like overnight. Like they gave me a 3-day notice.
And they thought you were making mad money off Red Bull and Vans and all this stuff, right?
That's the crazy thing, is that they didn't understand that, like, you know, they saw those logos in there and stuff like that, and they were like, oh my gosh, like, they must be killing it. And they don't understand that, like, yeah, these are big companies, but they don't just have like infinite amounts of dollars that they can throw towards whatever, and that the money that they gave for the contest went towards the prize purse, the prize purse was pretty good, and you know, we were doing like cash for tricks and stuff. So it was one of those things where I don't think they really understood like BMX economics, and it was just disappointing because sure, I could have like fought it and maybe like stayed in there for another couple months or something like that, but it was basically a losing battle as far as like I'm just me, and they're like a way more powerful than I am.
How long were you in there? Like 6 months?
No, it was how long was it? We were in there for 10 months, and I had a year lease with like an option to renew for a second. So yeah, it was just a bummer because I really did it so legit the second time. Like, great insurance policy, great like, lease, and everything was like sorted out and like took care of everyone that took care of us. And it was just like, I just really felt, I mean, I had I essentially had a 2-year plan with this 2-year lease. And had like essentially all the stuff I wanted to do, had it all mapped out. And then at 10 months, it just got like cut off. And it was just so crazy because I got this email, and it was actually on Thanksgiving Day that I got the email, and they were like, yeah, the following Monday, you need to pay this money or whatever. And then I ended up sorting it out so I could at least move out and not have to pay some crazy amount of money. It was just, it was one of those situations where it's like, what are you going to do? Like, yeah, sure, maybe this isn't legally okay.
But they have too much muscle and too much money to really fight
essentially, yeah. And it was a bummer, man. It was just all that, you put all that time and effort, and everyone had a blast, and the event, it was really like picking up steam. So essentially where it went from there was immediately I was like, well, I got to find a new building, but I'd moved it twice in 1 year. So you can imagine moving like a skate park twice in 1 year, rebuilding. And to move it, I gotta rent semi trucks. I gotta round up all the dudes.
Yeah.
Luckily, like, shout out to the Chicago BMX scene and all
Hell
my friends.
yeah.
Like, all the dudes stepped up and helped me move everything, and that was amazing. But it was a lot of money and just a lot of like just pain in the ass. And so I was like, if I'm gonna rebuild this, it has to be the perfect building, the perfect scenario, not shady, and or at least not shady to a certain extent. Because I'm not afraid to have it in a bad neighborhood. Like, that's fine. I mean, the first one was in,
You're
like...
thug.
You are from the hood, yeah.
The first one's like... Yeah, right. The first... But, I've been exposed to everything.
You're used to it,
The first one was in the murder capital of Chicago. I mean, it was in, like, a really, really bad neighborhood. Like,
Bang, bang.
Yeah, and so... But it was fine. I mean, we didn't bother anyone. No one really bothered us. If anything, they were psyched. Like... I don't know. It wasn't.
Why Chicago for you?
The hood loves action sports.
You have been diehard Chicago since you graduated college. What is it about Chicago that you love so much?
I think the thing for me is like, it's a big city that's. I'm impressed with it as a city because it has everything to offer. It's one of those places that you absolutely cannot get bored. There's just so much to do, like bike riding wise and non-bike riding wise. It's just kind of inspiring. Like, I love like. I mean, it sounds cliche, but like the pulse of a big city, like when you're just in the mix and on any given day, I meet so many awesome creative people that do different stuff, and that's motivating to me to do what I do. Like, that's motivating for me for riding. Like I not only like watch BMX videos before I go riding, like to get psyched like anyone would, or listen to music or whatever, but being around all these other people that essentially like motivate me is something that keeps me there. But I originally went there because I ended up being there anyways for travel purposes. Like, O'Hare Airport goes direct to anywhere, and I love to travel. And I was dating a girl there at the time, so I moved there for that. And I just had a lot of friends from college and friends that I rode with. And there's a good BMX scene. I love the BMX scene there because it's not like super cliquey, and it's not like, I don't know, it's big enough where there's a lot of people to ride with, and now we have a lot more to ride than we even did 5 years ago.
We have that shop too now, right?
Yeah, there's a shop. There's Let's Roast.
Let's Roast, yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, I love the scene. We got a good crew of people. Like, it's always a fun vibe. Everyone hangs out with everyone. It's dope. I like it. The weather sucks.
Tell us a little bit about, I think the last time we were in Chicago. Yeah, it was the last time because it was when we were there for the contest. I stayed with you for a couple extra days, and one day you were like, hey, do you want to go with me to a meeting? We're trying to get a skate park in Chicago. And I want to go, we'll go have some coffee with this guy. And he was with, I think, the Parks and Rec Department or something to do with the city. I was like, sure. So I went, and we had coffee with this guy. And sitting down, I remember sitting down, he's your typical city bureaucrat. You're sitting there talking, these are the reasons why we want to have a skate park. And this is why it would benefit Chicago. And he's like, well, like, you're just your typical person that doesn't really know a lot. And I remember sitting back thinking, this shit ain't never going to happen. Like, this is years away. And, like, Brian is so well-spoken. He's such a great example of like, a professional BMX rider. So, Brian is right there giving him all the facts, and I'm still sitting back and watching Brian give him the facts, thinking, "There's no way this is going to happen." This guy is so
we're so used to being pessimistic with this shit.
And the guy is just like, "Yeah, sure, yeah, right." And it was even funny because they made a comment about the bakery. And Brian had said something about the bakery, and this guy from the city council was like, haha, yeah, I know why you called it the bakery. And Brian's like, no, I don't smoke. And the guy's like, yeah, right, you don't smoke. And I'm like, this guy is like so clueless.
You think they would say that to me too? Yeah. I know why you called it ONSOMESHIT. No, I swear it has nothing to do with that.
But jump ahead a little over a year. Now it's Grant Park?
Yeah.
Grant Park Skate Park is reality. Please tell us about this.
How hard do you have to fight to get that open? Or to get bikes allowed in?
Story.
Yeah, so that was, I mean, like you said, it was one of those things where it's kind of like trying to this whole process, this skate park process, was kind of like how I would envision, like, I mean, this kind of like riding BMX. You might try something 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times, but that one time you pull it, it's worth it. So like you'll crash, you'll go to the hospital, whatever. But that one time, or now, hopefully more than once, but it becomes a reality, and you do that. You make that thing happen, and it's super satisfying. So that's it's a BMX trick, something that is sort of a finite period of time and whatever. But the skate park thing I went into that with the same mentality, in that like I've wanted to get I've always thought Chicago should have more skate parks. There's basically been 2 or 3 essentially over the years.
There's Wilson. You guys have Wilson?
Yeah, Wilson, 31st, and then they built one at Logan Square, and some other like smaller ones that aren't much to write home about, but are still something to ride. But
Wilson's the big popular one.
Wilson
right?
was the popular one, yeah. And so start going to these meetings, and when I first got wind that they were even thinking about a skate park, I just had to go to the meeting immediately. I had to just start going to meetings immediately, because I was like, bikes aren't technically allowed in any other skate park here. It's always frustrated me, even though a lot of times like
they ease up after a couple of years.
Yeah,
usually,
the
right?
police have bigger fish to fry. I mean, it's a big city.
But still, the fact that skaters can hold that against you is just
and then
shitty.
there used to be a vibe and whatever, and there still sometimes can be, but I think a lot of times we've kind of smoothed those things over. And actually, a lot of the skaters are my friends. But going back to the Grant Park thing, it's just like this is going to be a skate park that's like showcased like right in the middle of the city. I mean, this Grant Park is kind of Chicago's front yard. It's like a beautiful park, and to have a skate park there is going to be incredible, both for skateboarding, for BMX, for everyone, and just for kids in general, kids and adults. I mean, for myself, just, the location's amazing, but the process of it was just so many little meetings, so many emails. We ended up forming different committees as far as like design and things go, and I wanted to make sure that it was suitable for bikes. So I'm telling them like have the angle iron go at least like 4 inches off the concrete, and like all these little things, because sometimes you just have like the little wire bead on the side, or none at all, and so and there was some tug of war there with like, oh, how much marble should we use, and of course like there was some tug of war. I was like, you probably shouldn't use any because you want this to last forever, but but it was cool because it was a collaboration.
But you guys have marble? There's marble there?
There is marble there, yeah. But bikes are allowed, and bikes are allowed all day, every day, and they're psyched about it, And I think that really it came down to just being really persistent, going to meetings, and really talking to the city officials with their goals in mind, because the city officials, they don't want to go learn bar spins, they don't want to go whatever, but they want good things for their city. They want a place for these people to go. They want stuff that might attract like tourism and bring people into the city and things like that. So you just have to keep those goals in mind of those city officials, politicians, whatever, when you're trying to get these good things to happen for BMX, because you can't expect them to really understand what the latest and greatest tricks are, or what you're but maybe just try to to sensibly explain what you do and what your motivation is for wanting to do BMX and wanting a skate park, and there you have it. I mean, and shout out to like everyone who went to the meetings. I was always very adamant, like, BMXers need to show up to the meetings, otherwise this isn't going to happen.
And that goes across the board everywhere you're at. If
you
ride BMX and you want to make your scene better, you have to go to those meetings. You have to involve the cities to let them know that, hey, I'm a voice, I pay taxes, and I want a place to ride or skate.
Yeah, and another shout out to the Chicago scene, young and old. People showed up, and it was awesome, from riders who were 12, 13, 14 years old, all the way up to guys that are, a couple decades older than me.
Shout out to Koji Craft.
Let's target something slightly more personal. You recently made the switch from your longtime sponsor DK, and then silence for a week or so. Rodeo Peanut actually kind of got it before the actual media outlets. You made the move to GT. Why'd you leave DK, and did you get kicked off, or did you just choose to leave DK?
Are you trying to make me cry? Are you trying to make me cry?
Because you failed him as a team manager because you did nothing to stop this. No, let's not talk about the barrier there, but what happened with DK?
Well, DK, so I'd been with him for a decade.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that alone, to me, is like, I can't thank DK enough for how much, like, the last 10 years have been. They've been incredible. And the thing was you've been with a company for that long, and they've undergone a ton of changes even since I've been there. Since I got on the team, I got on the team. It was I first rode a Colin Winkleman frame, and
rest in peace.
He was such a badass, and he was a teammate of mine, Doyle, and there was that team, and then they kind of slowly like evolved into different team riders and different things, and just being with them that whole time was awesome. It was an experience, and seeing them kind of like go through like different phases as far as products and markets and stuff like that. It just became a time when I was kind of going in one direction and they were going in another as far as like how their brand is going to be like represented and what's valuable to them. And there were some things that I basically personally needed a change. Sometimes when you're in a certain situation for so long, things can just get a little bit stagnant. And when I actually got approached about the GT thing, it was back before I had even really thought about switching, and seeing how motivated GT was and everyone aboard, and just seeing kind of what they had planned for the brand, it was like, this could be a good thing. It could be like a new start and something different, and just a lot of fun too, because I loved like all my teammates on DK were awesome, and they're like some of my best friends. Like Bestwick, huge inspiration to me. The fact that he's still absolutely killing it, for as long as he has, and still, every day just murdering it.
Shout out to Bestwick. Yeah,
it's just so amazing. And Drew's like the freaking firecracker. I'd put anything in front of him, and he's like absolutely destroys it. But being teammates with Rob and Jeremiah, I've just seen it this week, and actually kind of got a taste for that last year when I joined Vans. I hadn't had this for a little while, where I went on a trip with dudes who are like totally on the same page as far as like we're kind of riding similar stuff. Like we're out riding street and filming and like looking for spots and doing that sort of thing. And now when I went to Chile with Vans last year, I was like, this is amazing. Like this whole crew, like we're kind of like all on the same page. And sure, I've done a lot of trips like this, but just the fact that it's like a team trip with all these dudes, it was super inspiring. And then fast forward to this week, I'm with Rob and Jeremiah, and we've gone out every day, and everyone's killed it, and we've kind of like switched off, filming and like doing, shooting photos and everything, and riding like all these different crazy spots, and motivating each other by doing, different stuff, because we all ride a little bit different, but, still motivating each other. It was like just really refreshing to be in that sort of scenario. And, and absolutely nothing against DK. It was just, it was time for me to change, and it was something like that I just needed to do. And this week has already been incredible, so I'm really excited. What
are your plans with GT in 2015?
Well, I'm pretty excited because this is our first trip together, but already on this trip we've talked about wanting to do more trips often. Like we're talking about doing at least like 3 or 4 this year, kind of bigger trips, like destination kind of things. Because we all live in different parts of the country. Like Rob lives in Utah, Jeremiah lives out in Pennsylvania, I live in Chicago. So it's not like we ride with each other on a daily basis, but the fact that, so we'll have to like kind of choose a destination to go film and get things done, and to ride together. But there's going to be more of that, and definitely they're going to be like improving the products and doing the, essentially revamping GT, because it's such a legendary brand that's been around for so long. But I feel like it's been a little quiet as far as like freestyle goes for a while. When I was a kid, it was popping. They had a crazy team, and whatever.
When I was a kid, GT was the shit.
I got into BMX because of a GT Air show with Rob Nollie and Tom Hagen.
Hell yeah.
Maybe
GT Pro Freestyle
97
Tour.
or something.
GT Pro Freestyle Tour, the baddest bike ever.
Yeah, my first bike was a GT Vertigo as well. And
Hell
so
yeah.
It does have like some nostalgia for me. I know that for generations, the generations that have been the younger generations, they might not even know what what kind of legacy GT had left on BMX previous to recent years, because they have only been in BMX for a handful of years or less. So yeah.
Can I bring you back 10 years or so? We were watching your Aspire part.
Love it.
The first crash in it is one of the most disgusting things you'll ever see. If you're aware of how a knee works and you want to see a knee stretch in a way that a knee should never stretch, what point in your life were you at, like back then? Like what were you doing with yourself? Where were you at mentally? What did you consider your goals? Like where were you at back then? And what year was that?
That would have been 2003, I think. 2000, it might have even been before that.
Because for those who don't know, Aspire was kind of like a video contest right before the internet started to pop off, and you would submit a section. It was kind of like The Hunt is now, or was. I don't know if they're still doing The Hunt, but
I just figured it out. I know it's 2003 because, or maybe actually 2004. It was early 2004 because I had entered and won, and I was broke at the time. I was in college. I had like no real disposable income besides maybe like some like cheap beer on like whatever and like whatever I needed for my bike, and that was like essentially all I would spend money on. So I won that contest. I won a bunch of money. I think it was like $1,500 or $2,000 or something like that, and that's what paid for my first trip to Europe ever. I went for the Worlds, and I ended up getting like top 10 in mini ramp that year. Whatever. It kind of changed my life because it was my first time really going out of my element. I had been to Canada and I had been to Mexico like briefly before that. I'd been to some states, the different states and things, but going over there was like a whole different world.
Yeah,
and
the
it was
world,
just like,
especially back then,
yeah,
that year they were going buck wild.
Yeah,
Is that in
it just
Cologne?
and it just blew me away. Like I was just super impressed, and it really like made me want to see more. But at that time I was in college, and that was, man, such a crazy time because I knew that I wanted the college experience, and it kind of had been ingrained. Both my parents went to college. My dad actually went to UW-Madison where I went, and so we kind of kept that in the family there, which is rad. But
Shout out to Len.
Yeah, he's such a badass. But I mean, college was such a weird time because I had technically turned pro when I was in college.
For standard or?
Actually, yeah, I rode for standard. But I started entering pro contests because I won the CFB series after my freshman year in college.
So the
CFB
Oklahoma?
series was, they had 3 stops, one in Florida, one in Pennsylvania, and one in California. And I'd won like the overall thing, and I won like a gold straight jacket, and like Matt Hoffman.
Was the
still have
California
that?
one at Woodward West? Was it Woodward West?
No, it was Woodward East.
You still have the straight jacket?
Yeah, Merritt
I do somewhere, yeah. Merritt
Of course
Island.
he does. He's got so many
Did you win the
outfits.
AM
It's amazing.
series?
What, say that again?
He said you have a lot of outfits,
Oh, yeah,
which is
yeah.
interesting. I
Was
don't
that
know
the
what
AM
that's supposed to
series?
mean.
Yeah, it was the AM
Yeah.
series, but they also did pro at those
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
But
I
so
went to
won
all those ones.
Yeah, I won the AM series that title that year, and so I started actually even that summer. I started entering pro contests and did really well at like a Triple Crown and stuff like that. And but it was a weird point where I was still in college, so I couldn't really pursue bike riding, fully, because it's not like you can just go off on a trip for 2 weeks when you got like midterms and papers to write and all that kind of stuff. And I remember actually going to a Roots Jam one year and having to miss a huge exam and trying to explain to my statistics professor like why I needed to go to this contest in Florida, and he was just like, I even showed him a magazine, like, hey, here's a picture of me like on the cover of a magazine, and this is what I'm going to do.
See, I feel like that would
And
be
he
easy to explain. Like, it should be easy for someone to understand, right?
This guy was foreign as well, and and
God, those,
English.
yeah.
Well, English wasn't his first language, so I was like trying to simply explain why, and he was just like, "Well, you're a student, right?" And I was like, "Yeah," and he's like, "You can't miss this exam," like straight up, and I was just like, "Okay," and so I ended up making it work somehow. I barely made it to Roots or something like that, but it was an interesting time in my life where I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do afterwards. I knew I loved BMX. I knew I wanted the college experience. I knew I wanted an education. I knew I wanted that knowledge, because college is good, I think, at least where I went and the program I did, because it teaches you a different way of thinking and viewing things and basically accomplishing things. Like, it was in high school, you might have a paper due at the end of the year, but that teacher is going to remind you like every day or every week, like, hey, you got to do this paper. It's going to be huge. It's going to be due at the end of the year. You better work on it. College, they'll tell you the first day. They'll be like, hey, end of the semester, you have a 30-page paper due, and they might not mention that until it's due, and you just have to remember and pace yourself on your own pace, like how are you going to get this done? Yeah. And so it's just essentially like accomplishing those tasks, and at least that was my experience anyways. And it was a work hard, play hard school as well. Like, we partied a lot, we rode a lot. I didn't sleep a lot because it was just like there was just too much to do, and it was awesome, but it was also a competitive school and really really difficult. So I ended up graduating with honors, and then started kind of doing the BMX thing full time after that.
At what point did you realize that maybe I can do this? Like, before you graduated, did you think that maybe I'm gonna after I graduate I'm gonna take this BMX thing as far as I can?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I knew I loved bike riding, and I'd already, by that point, like, I had been in a lot of magazines and videos and things like that, which was rad, and had people supporting me. You know, wasn't making much money, but it was, I didn't care. I mean, I was like just riding my bike, and it was a blast, and that's what it was about. But I have to say, there was a point when I graduated, and it was in December, and it was freezing cold in Wisconsin where I graduated, and it was kind of like, what do you do now, Brian? And I basically had $500 to my name and drove down to Florida, and DeGroot was like, come stay with me for the winter, you know, don't spend, because he grew up actually in the same area that I did, Chad DeGroot, and he was like, hey, come down to Florida, hang out for the winter, like, hell, even move here if you want, like, and he really just gave me a place to stay that winter, and I rode all the time, and opportunities actually within 3-4 months or something like that from that, opportunities started coming my way, and you know, more travel was paid for, and things started to really pick up. So it was really gradual. It wasn't like, all right, I'm going to do this. It was just like, I don't know exactly what I want to do. I know I'm armed with some skills and some accomplishments with school and things like that I can apply to whatever I want, but I didn't necessarily have like a specific path that I wanted to take. I just knew that I wanted this knowledge and these skills, and kind of would let everything else fall into place after that.
Interesting.
So then where did you go from Orlando? Like, how did you end up moving to Chicago? Was it straight from there?
No, I floated around for a while. I even went to like North Carolina for a bit, like a couple weeks or something, and just drove around, but still had like some stuff up at my parents' house.
And what age would you have been at this point?
23.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 22, 23. Yeah, eventually it was, it became time. Oh, actually, this is kind of funny. I tore my ACL that would have been the second time.
Not that clip I'm talking about, a different one?
Yeah, I've
Was it the one on Megator? The gap
no,
rail manual?
That was my first ACL.
How many ACLs have you torn?
3 now. Yeah. But
So the first one was Megator, the second one was Aspire. What was the third one?
Aspire, I didn't tear it actually.
Oh, okay, my bad.
But no, second one was I was just doing a rail in Milwaukee and crashed, and then the third one was rail in Texas. Both those were like the third one was a freak one where I didn't even crash. I just put my foot down weird and rode away, and I was like, damn, I tore my ACL. And I was actually with Stu and some other people, and they were like, no way, you didn't tear your ACL. And I was like, yeah, I swear to God, I just did.
You knew, like,
I knew immediately, yeah.
What does it feel like to tear your ACL?
Fucking hell.
When you watch somebody do it, it's kind of like you're watching like a murder. Because
Well-
you have some, you can tell everybody like, yo, I saw him.
But see, it's like that video, like his Aspire video. When you watch it, because it's in slow motion. When you watch it, you're just, and you know what you're watching.
Well, he didn't
because you
tear it
can
on that
see.
one, he just said,
I know,
but,
but
yeah.
still, when you're watching, it's the same thing as watching somebody tear it, because it's just like that cannot
Yeah.
be good.
Yeah, but I was actually recovering from an ACL, and I was up in my hometown, Neenah, Wisconsin, and I had a doctor and a physical therapist there that were helping me recover, and I just really wasn't psyched on my physical therapist. I didn't feel like I was so motivated to get back to what I was doing, like to riding, as soon as possible and being as strong as possible. And he would kind of say stupid things like, oh, why do you want to get strong so you can go beat yourself up again and whatever? And he just didn't understand, And it's not like he wasn't a bad guy. He was never exposed to BMX and why we do what we do, so he probably just thought I was insane. But that was a point where I was like, I just need to make a change. I don't know, I've always wanted to live in a bigger city, and I was dating a girl who lived in Chicago at the time, and I was kind of going down there a lot anyways, and I was just like, you know what, it's just time to like man up and move and do something. So yeah, it was from that point on, and then I finished my ACL recovery there in Chicago with like a way better physical therapist and stuff like that, and just everything kind of fell into place after that.
Talk to me a little bit about Baco and the influence.
Going back, okay.
Because I think for a lot of people, Brian's part in Baco 10, Baco 10, was that your first real video part?
Not technically, but definitely one of the first bigger ones, like in a very, well-known video.
Well, at the time, Baco was huge. So.
Yeah.
To like people in the know, this is.
Yeah.
The internet was out, but it wasn't like it was today.
No, you couldn't really get like content on the internet like you can today.
Yeah.
The capabilities weren't really present.
But you went hard. I mean, that video part for me, anyways, like you did some crazy stuff in there by today's standards. It's still crazy.
Yeah, I was pretty psyched on it. It was an honor because the first video I ever watched was Baco 6, and it got me hooked on BMX. Like from a, like, you know, I was already into BMX. I thought it was cool. I'd seen some maybe like BMX Plus magazines, some ride magazines, which were obscure at the time. Like Ride BMX magazine was like this weird, like more underground magazine.
Right, yeah.
You know, so I'd seen BMX, but I'd never seen tricks at that level before I'd seen Baco 6, and I was like immediately addicted. And the fact that they were having fun too, and like fucking off and having, you know, like.
And they're from Wisconsin.
Gay pride stickers.
It's just like, I mean, it was just an interesting thing, and they were the first pros I ever met because they would go to my local park and stuff like that, and then moving forward, they would start to take me on trips, and before I knew it, I was like traveling with these pro guys and hanging out with like, you know, dudes who were just like way above my level of riding, but yet like I was progressing like crazy because I was riding with these guys, and just being exposed. And then through that, I met every other pro. Like all the super, you know, I met Miron and like Hoffman and Mira. Like, I mean,
you were in a good spot there to have those guys as your mentors, and they were like big in the media at that time. So
yeah. I mean,
Frymouth and those guys.
We had dudes like we had Ruben Alcantara like come visit Appleton, Wisconsin. And here's this dude from Malaga, Spain, and that was actually before Ruben was big. And then of course like Ruben and all the guys filming for Forward at the time like came through and filmed, and I remember like just witnessing that. And when you're a kid and you're witnessing that, like just that level of stuff, and then seeing it filmed, and later, you know, just really seeing how it all works, you're just like, damn, this stuff is incredible.
And then you went on to have a part in the next Etnies video after Forward. How was filming for Grounded? Who'd you film with for that?
That's my hands down my favorite Brian.
We watched it before.
Video.
I love it.
It is so. It's one of those ones where like
the song is so good too.
Everything about it's so awesome because you can show it to somebody that doesn't understand BMX, and you're watching this guy eat shit. And then you watch him just get so pissed and get up, and he fucking slams it and kills it. And like it's a great way to capture someone's passion about BMX, because you see this guy and you're like, why does he keep doing that? And then it fucking slams in with the tricks. I mean, talk a little bit about filming for that.
It was a painful summer.
We took some slams.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was one of those things where I'd watched Forward growing up and seen it filmed and things like that, and so when I got the opportunity to be a part of something like that, I had to wanted to, you know, do the best I could. And when I got a chance to go on like different trips with, actually a lot of the trips that summer were with Stu and Aaron Ross, and Hickerson was on a few of them as well, but a lot of them were actually pretty small trips. We did some bigger ones to like Germany and stuff like that. And I wasn't on every single trip they did either. But, you know, you just come across these spots, and you have Stu there, who I was comfortable filming with. And, and you had Aaron Ross, who was also coming up at the time. And, you know, him and I were just like essentially trading off, like filming things. And Aaron and I even ride totally different. But again, like kind of like I was mentioning this week with Rob and Jeremiah, like Aaron and I were just motivating each other by like, he would do something, I would do something, he would film something, I'd film something, you know, that it was like that sort of like going back and forth kind of thing, not in a competition kind of way, but just like just pushing each other. And it was just awesome. So yeah, I was really psyched on the finished product, although I have to say that I didn't finish it under my own accord. I got hurt enough to have to stop filming for it. Oh wait, so I think that was my second ACL. Possibly, yeah. I think filming for that. So I basically had to stop, but it could be a blessing in disguise, because some of the stuff that I had planned, some of the stuff I had in mind for that part might have been the end of me.
Really?
So, I mean, maybe. I look back now at like some of the setups that I was gonna do right
towards any famous setups?
Right towards the deadline. No, they were actually ones that you probably. I remember one in Cincinnati was like a triple kinked rail. Picture that, but it went down, flat, and then down, flat, and then down. So essentially it was like really long, kind of long, or like really long, short, and then long. So you'd have to like blaze down this thing, and it's like real deal steel down a big hill. There's rocks, jagged rocks on the other side, but you'd have to blaze down it, gap off the second part, skip a whole stage, and then down to the next part. But to me in my head, you know, I saw this setup in Cincinnati, and I was like,
or it's near Cincinnati somewhere, and I was like, damn, like I have to go try that. And when I went there the first time, it was raining or the scenario wasn't right, and so I mean it was things like that I was gonna try, you know, and I probably in retrospect shouldn't have, even though I love pushing myself, even like I did today, and why my foot's purple, but
it is gross, by the way. You guys can't see it. It's disgusting.
But man, like there's some things where you're just like, it could have been. I always try to see the positive in everything.
Yeah.
I've gotten hurt a lot. I've been through a lot of shit. You know, I've been arrested and everything. Like there's always a good side of everything, and I think with that one, it was probably a blessing. Like tearing my ACL was a lucky thing, I would say. So
It's kind of a theme that we have on the show, but can we talk about your El Toro story? What happened when you tried to go there and shoot the cover of a ride, and it didn't work out, but then it still kind of worked out?
Yeah, that was a crazy day because we go to El Toro, and I go there with Sims, who I love riding with Brad because he's this savage.
So this was the day he tried to ice up it as well?
He grinded up it that day.
Oh,
so
for a left-right?
Yeah.
Or was it insight?
Can't
That's the most
remember.
cliche conversation in BMX, and if you live in Southern California. Was it in left-right or was it in insight?
Yeah, I can't remember,
I
but
think that was left-right.
I think you're right, but
I think it was left-right.
Yeah, I think
so
it was left-right.
yeah, we
don't
go
know.
there with toothpick, with tooth in it in mind, and I had
Straight tooth in it.
hanger.
Tooth hanger.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I had hangered some big rails leading up to that, so I didn't feel like it was too big of a stretch to do like another 3 stairs or whatever it was or 4 stairs compared to what I had done previous to that. And just like the geometry of the whole rail and everything, I was like, yeah, that'll work out. So we go there, and Sims hadn't even planned on doing anything there, and all of a sudden goes there and sees how low the one side rail is, and he just starts grinding up it. And I was like, damn, like he can do this. And Fudger, I think, was it Fudger? Yeah. So Fudger was there, and he was like, Brad, you gonna do that? And he's like, yeah. And Brad, like especially at that time when he would get in the mode, like he was just like, I'm gonna do this. And so immediately I was like, yo, like I'll back off for a second. I want to see this, you know. So let's save my tooth hanger for a little later. So Brad, it takes him a little while to go up it, and he eventually goes up it, of course.
How many tries?
Maybe I could totally be wrong about this.
Or about like in minutes, 20 minutes, half hour? Or?
Maybe about like half an hour.
It's weird to think about Brad Sims trying that because it's like he knows exactly what he's doing. He's just got to fucking go so unbelievably
oh my
fast.
God. Dude,
Yeah.
so many tries. I mean, just doing a AA Pro sprint up till that thing. So it was, but it was awesome to see. And at the time, it was just unbelievable. So it started to get dark. And I still wanted to hanger it. Brad had gone up it, so I was fired up from seeing that. I was like, that was fucking amazing. So I want to do this. And I pegged it a few times, and then I was like, all right, I'm going to go. And I found out that at that point that you really need, if you're doing a hanger on a rail that big, you need to like wait to hang it over. Like you have to really wait. So you essentially have to do like a straight tooth, and then at the end start to maybe the last like
Because if you hang it over right away, then you're gonna.
Oh, you're screwed.
You're
Yeah.
fucked. Yeah.
You're gonna land 90, and that actually kind of did happen maybe on one of the tries, but blew up.
Because you tried it a bunch of times in the dark.
Yeah, so the conditions just weren't good. Like it was getting dark, and I couldn't really see right. But I tried it a couple times, and there was actually one attempt that I don't think was ever seen. That some I got murdered. Like a couple tries. I actually, the fact that I even got to try it 4 or 5 times is pretty crazy.
That's on the middle rail too, right?
Yeah, it was when they had the middle rail. But one of the tries, I went down it all the way, and I was already celebrating in my head. I was like, "Fuck yeah, Brian, you did it!" Like.
You have time to think about this before you even hit the ground?
Kind of, because you just know when it feels right.
Yeah.
I was just in it, and I was just like, I got this if I hang on. And I found out how hard you actually land on a hanger that big because I just wasn't ready for the impact. So I landed like both wheels at the same time and just blew off the back, but had essentially pulled it. You know, I wasn't like, I mean, in my head, I was like, man, if my hands went to slip, like that would have been it. So I didn't get that done and ended up like really getting rocked, and I thought I like ruptured my spleen, and luckily I didn't, but really got rocked in the like meaty arms and the whole deal. But
So how long was it till you came back?
Came back like a couple months later, maybe it was a month or two. I can't remember, but I was gonna try El Toro again.
Yeah.
And as soon as I landed, in LA, I find out that the middle rail's gone. I didn't want to do the side rail because of how it
was you'd land on half concrete, half grass,
mulch
and
or
this
whatever,
wasn't like a it doesn't count kind of thing. It was just like I think like it might get your wheel stuck, or like what if I do it perfect and land half grass, half concrete, and like fall for some stupid reason rather than like not being able to do tricks.
And it just wasn't what you were originally thinking.
Yeah.
So
we caught wind of this other rail in San Diego that was like a 18 or something. That ended up being the cover, and I got that first try. But all I was telling myself the whole time was like, don't kick out too early and hang the fuck on. So like when I did that one in San Diego, that ended up being the cover. Landed just as hard as I did on El Toro, but I was like death grip, like
not letting go.
No.
Wasn't that clip in a Ride BMX how-to tooth hanger?
It was, yeah.
And was that the only place it appeared?
I think they actually did end up using it in my props bio as well, like a different angle of it.
Because I remember at the time someone hit me up and saying, "Don't you think that is the best clip ever and the worst edit ever, or the edit of the least importance ever?" And I was like, I always thought that was pretty funny. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, the fact that was in a how-to was pretty funny, but. Yeah, I mean that was it was just one of those things where you just everything did kind of work out. Like that was it was like deja vu when we went to that other rail because it was just before sunset. Again, like I'd gone to El Toro just before sunset and it got too dark and whatever. So it was like a race against time and the sun and the fact that we got it done and the photo turned out and everything was just that was kind of like a good moment.
But El Toro, you nollied onto that at how much later was that?
That was maybe like a couple years later. I had started getting more and more into nollie rails and
because I tried to watch your props bio earlier today and it doesn't work online for whatever reason, but that's one of the most notable things in the props bio is that's the one where you do the nollie gap to rail.
Nollie gap to rail.
And that was the first ever nollie to rail, was a nollie to gap to rail, right?
Actually, I wouldn't say that, no, because I had done one in grounded before that.
It was the kink drill, or?
I think...
it was like a really small kink drill, or was that something else?
Actually, the first nollie gap to rail I did was the day after the first Street X Games. I went to UCI and did that one. And then the one I did as the banger for my props bio was in Maryland. And it's funny because I did that. I did the nollie gap to pegs, and then I was like, well, I'm so fired up. Like, that was obviously terrifying. So I'm going to try nollie gap to hanger because I've always dreamt of it, and right now is like the time because I feel invincible. Like, I mean, just the feeling of like doing something that scary and like getting it done, you just, you feel like invincible. And I was like, all right, well, let's give this a whirl. And I got murdered. And I,
murdered.
So that happened. And that clip, a little snippet of that clip was actually in my props bio. But I went back last summer, 2 summers ago, to go do the nollie gap hanger again. And, same thing happened. I was like murdered. Yeah, I was like, there's a photo of it actually, and there's a frame where I'm just committed in the toothpick, like straight face, like hanging, doing a hanger, but this much below the rail, like an inch below the rail. So yeah, it was not good.
What was your mentality when you decided that you wanted to do the first ever nollie onto a rail? I believe you did the first one, right?
I don't know.
Behringer did one, but it was very small in Criminal Mischief.
Yeah. Well, I'd done...
Butcher, maybe, as well, I think, did one. But they were very small. I think yours was the most official one.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, because I'd definitely just done a lot of nollie grinds on things, and just thought it's a fun thing, it's a challenging thing, it's like sort of reversing everything. It kind of gives you that feeling when you first learn to hop on rails. Like when you first learned to bunny hop on a rail.
I'm still working on that feeling.
That like, well, I filmed you doing one in Russia. I remember.
Little guy, yeah.
Yeah. But it was that feeling of like just being kind of terrified and really concentrating and whatever. It was it's like that same feeling, and so yeah, I just started doing more and more of them, and eventually it was like, yeah, I can handle a big boy like El Toro, I guess.
You do a lot of scary shit, and you take some hard crashes. What? I mean.
Are you crazy?
It's just it's always funny because as long as I've known him, I always think back to this time we were in Vegas, and we were all flying in. I forget what we were there for, maybe Interbike. But there were these guys that I'd met, and they were just random guys, but they were gonna meet BK, and I was explaining Brian to them what they did. And there I was like, oh, it's like, he's college graduate, he's a pro BMX rider. And like, BMX rider, what does he do? And I was like, he's like a street rider. And there was like a stair set. And there was like maybe like a 15 stair set. I was like, he's one of these guys that imagine running as fast as you can off the top of that stair set and just jumping off. and eating shit and getting up and doing that again. And they didn't get it, and then I took them up into the room and I showed them your etnies part, and they saw it and they were like, whoa. They just couldn't understand the I guess what's behind somebody that wants to do the crazy scary shit and take the hits and keep doing it.
It's hard for us to understand too why he wants to do so much crazy scary shit.
Some of it is seriously so scary, and that's the crazy thing about Brian too, because he's like this Clark Kent. Because if you didn't know Brian Kachinsky rode BMX, if you were sitting next to him at Chipotle in downtown Los Angeles, you would think he was a lawyer or an accountant, or he's a very well-spoken dude.
Barney Rubble.
You show him a video of some of the stuff he does, it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Do you think that you bring out like a weird side of your personality when you do like a big gap to rail? What is it inside you that makes you want to do that kind of shit?
I think it's I don't have ADD or anything like that, but I think that there's always like a million things running through my head on a daily basis, like whatever it might be, things you need to do, things you want to accomplish, like little maybe big things, maybe little mundane things that like just take your attention, right? Like just little random things you think about throughout the day. But when you're trying something scary like that, that is like such a almost like peaceful moment in a weird way. Like it sounds weird because it's chaotic, obviously, and can be really chaotic. But when you're so concentrated on just one single thing, like at that moment, it's like, I don't know, it's just cool. It's like really satisfying to like just really, really like hone in on something that you can do, you can accomplish, and that if you really just like put, your fear aside and whatever, and just trust your skill and your vision, that you can make it happen. And I think that it's kind of addicting too. It's like and then you see these setups and you just get motivated by them. I think that's like my main motivator riding in general. Like I love to learn new tricks. That's always like super fun and will never get old and whatever, but I'm really, really motivated by setups. Like when you find a setup and stuff like that. And a lot of times I just happen to like see scary ones and get motivated by those too. But it's just one of those things where it's just almost like, and it seems like complete oxymoron, but it is almost like a moment of peace for a second where you're just like, all right, like we're focusing on this like one like specific thing, and the consequences are obviously there, but you feel like you're, and I've backed out of a ton of stuff too.
Have you really?
Yeah.
I have a hard time imagining that.
And it's not like you're 23 anymore either, so it's still fucking gnarly.
That's what's so impressive to me is
still doing crazy
that
gap
you
rails.
are a different breed of BMX rider where the shit that you're doing, if something goes wrong, you could fucking die. Like literally.
Let's not talk about it.
But it's a reality, and that's the crazy thing with Brian's situation is that, and I've been on so many trips with him, and he's so calculated, and there's never been a time where I've been like, oh, Brian might die here. It's always like, oh, he's got this. He's got this. But it has to get to a point where you're like, man, like, I mean, I know your mom has to. You got to drive your mom nuts sometimes, or does she not see the crash footage?
She sees it. I think she, for the most part, likes to. She hates to see it in general, but likes to maybe not see it, or at least knows that I'm okay when I'm sitting next to her when she's watching it, or talking to her on the phone when she's, after she's watched it or something like that. But it is one of those things. I think in general, though. Granted, they wouldn't want to see me take those risks and do those things, but the fact that, and this goes for both my parents, my mom and my dad, who I respect completely, the fact that they see me happy, and the fact that they've seen me do things that I'm happy with, and see things and experience things and learn things through BMX, and the fact that that I do something active and creative, I think that they respect that more so, and just more so care about the fact that I'm happy rather than like, oh my god, like he's taking these crazy risks. But I don't think it's just not in my DNA to not like push myself and do the best that I can. So
I have a question. How old are you now?
33 now.
So 33. A lot of people have stopped riding, or at least slowed down a lot by 33. Do you see yourself as being, I think there's like two types of riders. There's the kind of rider who over time they chill out, and like maybe they're a pro rider and they keep, they keep riding, but they chill out a lot and they stop doing crazy stuff. And then there's guys like Jay Miron, who once he was done riding at his top level, he was just like, fuck this shit, and he walked away from it, because he was always the kind of guy who was about the fucking glory and about inventing new tricks.
He's not going to be the best, he's not going to do it.
Exactly.
Right.
Could you see yourself being the kind of guy who, when you're 40, still goes and hangs out at the skate park and does a table over the box and chills? Or do you think you're going for the gusto? You're just going to tear the ACL 18 times and try and cap to rails?
I see myself always riding. Like, just the feeling, because I've already felt I already know the beauty and simplicity of like riding your bike. Like, I've gone 6 months without riding my bike due to an ACL 3 times. Add that up, 18 months. That's just ACLs. That's not all the other injuries and bullshit that I've had. So after I recover from those things, just riding down the street, doing a manual, doing a bunny hop is like it's awesome. And just cruising around, and that's an awesome feeling and a beautiful feeling. But I think what's changed for me is like, I'm not necessarily I don't want to, compared to like, let's say now, or like right now, say it's from 12 years ago or something like that. I don't want to do what everyone else is doing. I don't want to always do what, the tricks that are popular, the tricks that everyone's doing. Granted, some of those are fun, and I do love to learn some of those. But like, I don't want to be the carbon copy of someone else. I want to. There's so many things you can do on a bike, and so many like different setups you can ride, and different things. Like, I just feel like you can take things in your own direction and push things in your own direction without, being a carbon copy of someone else. So I think that's what motivates me now versus, even 10, 12 years ago. But going back to your question, like, yeah, no matter what, I think I'll always love to ride. I'll always, like, as long as my body's working, which that's the thing. I've had tons of injuries, but I still in general feel really good. Like,
but you also, you unlike a lot of BMX pros, really take care of yourself as well. You watch what you eat, you go to the gym. A lot of guys don't do that.
Yeah, and
street riders.
I'm not like OD about it. I do eat whatever. I'll eat pizza and a burger here and there and whatever, but I'm just smart about it. I don't eat that for every meal and whatever. I like to.
I was gonna say I do that for pretty much every meal.
I like to live. I like.
I'm trying to eat more salads.
Hanging out with Catfish.
Yeah.
Taco Bell.
But you just gotta be smart about it. That's the thing, is I've always listened to my doctors as far as like recovery goes. If he says don't ride for 6 weeks or ride when I tell you to ride, then I wait. Because I need that too for myself. Like, I need that doctor to say like, okay, you're good, because I don't want to have that like thing in the back of my head like, oh, if you fall on this, you could re-break your foot or whatever, like, or re-tear your knee or whatever, So I wait for that green light, and I think that's something that maybe some people don't do. You see people cut their casts off, or I've never done any of that bullshit, but, you just really like doing what you can. And I think that shows to, proves to myself how much I love BMX, because when I'm off my bike due to those injuries and I go to the gym, I'm not like really enjoying myself at the gym doing those gym things. Like, I'm thinking about riding. When
You're doing a bicep curl and thinking like, oh my God, this bar spin's going to feel so much easier next time.
No, I'm just thinking about like, God, I can't wait to, be like, have that feeling of riding again. And that's why I'm doing this right now. So that's kind of my, my take on things. And I think that's been a big key to my longevity too. And will continue to be as long as I keep taking care of myself and keep like, really being like finding where my motivation is and feeding that,
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
5 years from now, I still see, it's tough to say.
If you still could be a pro rider with the same exact sponsors you have right now, would you be perfectly happy to keep grinding away?
Yeah, but you know what? I would love to be, I'd love to be in a different spot, in that I would love to, in between now and then, have made
the transition to the industry a little more.
Positive changes in BMX where like, you're still riding at a high level, but positive changes in that I'm essentially using my like years and years of experience doing this stuff, and changing the way like contests, for example, or jams or whatever, or just doing what I can to kind of have BMX pushed in the direction I think it can go. Because I think BMX is like the coolest thing
Ever.
out there. I think it's, it really is. And
Same.
I think it just needs to be, pushed in the right direction and maybe showcased in the right way. And, I see myself definitely doing things that impact that in the next 5 years. So I'm excited for that.
We're an hour and 16 minutes in. Catfish, you have anything else that we really need to talk about here?
I'm trying to think. What do the kids want to know? Do we look and cover any of the questions that the kids were asking?
I did. I glimpsed through. You already have 300 comments on Instagram.
Man. Some of them were pretty raw, huh?
Some of them were a little raw. I noticed like a huge percentage of them were about eating ass or just, I guess that's the hot topic in BMX right now, but just people wanting to know, how big is your dick in circumference?
Good Lord. Where's your favorite country that you've been to?
Oh, man. I love going to like China and Russia.
Are you a crackhead?
I know we covered Chicago and everything and why you love Chicago and everything, and you're one of the few pros that actually stayed where you're kind of from, but why have you never made the move to California?
We try to get him out here every day.
Yeah, because you're one of the few that stays kind of where you're from.
Yeah, I just love the scene out there, and I like that it's, it's still home. Like it's still, my family's not too far away. They live 3 hours away, and I just feel like there's a lot of opportunity there, even, and even like from a media standpoint, like I got awesome friends that also are really good photographers and filmers and stuff like that. So it's not like it's.
But has it crossed your mind? Because we'd love to have you here.
Completely. And I love coming out to visit, and I have like stayed here for extended periods of time. Shout out to Rooftop for putting me up for an entire winter one time, and helping me keep my sanity and things like that. But so it's. Who knows? Which I can't say never.
A kid wanted to know. This just caught my Steezy Mike wants to know how big is his penis. So Steezy Mike, that's very rude. But someone also asked about free coasters over cassettes.
Yeah, I'm having fun with the coaster right now. I can't say that I'm using it to its fullest, but it's a lot of fun, and it's like really motivating. Like before, I wouldn't be able to have like as much fun like riding something like even just riding a parking lot or something like that. Like a free coaster just makes it so much interesting and frustrating, but it's just a cool new challenge. My bike's gone through many changes over the years.
R.I.P. Brian's front brakes.
Yeah, right. I had front brakes. And,
there's definitely kids out there probably not psyched on the fact that you don't have front brakes anymore. That's kind of a letdown to your Midwest heritage.
Yeah,
right?
some of the questions they said, what happened to the front brakes, and are you ever going to go back to front brakes?
Yeah, that's something time will tell. Whatever looks fun at the time, But
translation, no.
I think it's just.
Take it from the group chat.
I didn't even have 4 pegs until 3 years ago.
That's right.
4
Yeah,
years ago.
you were late on the bus on that one.
Yeah, and I couldn't imagine ever going back, not having 4 pegs. Yeah.
Do you burn the dope?
No,
he
it's
doesn't.
not my thing.
He
Like,
doesn't.
it's not my thing because it is some people's thing, but I it just makes me lazy and worthless and go to sleep.
I just thought it was funny that he phrased it, do you burn the dope? Also, next one, kid_Vicente, can you be my teddy bear? What the fuck?
Sports team allegiance.
I guess the Packers, I can't, I wouldn't say that I get super, it doesn't ruin my day when things don't go their way.
They really blew it a few days ago.
Yeah. But it's whatever. It's cool. It's home. Everyone where I'm from is Packer fans, so shout out to
Brian Velasquez, did you ever toe up your mom?
No, but
I would assume not, but it sounds like he's referencing something that maybe did happen.
Brian didn't tail whip his mom, but on our last Bikes Over Baghdad trip, we were doing in the middle of the show, you do the, have everybody lay down on the ground. And, as the announcer, I'm like, okay, I'll get all these guys to lay down on the ground. And at the very last moment, we laid like 13 people on the ground or something. At the very last moment, they're like, Catfish, lay down. At the last minute. So I lay down, and I got my hands over me, and Brian comes bunny hops, and he just literally manuals my chest. Like,
did it hurt?
Hey,
a little bit.
I've manualed enough rails. I had to manual some ribs, I guess.
That's a dream come true for a lot of people out there who would love to do something like that to you. Hey, this is a good question from Taylor Etzel. What time of day do you take a shit?
Whenever it's time.
Whenever you're not on like a super consistent schedule. I'm a morning guy.
See, that's the other thing I really want people to know and appreciate Brian is that Brian's sense of humor is so far advanced, and He is so witty in his pun game. You cannot mess with Brian Kachinsky's pun game, right? I mean,
He's big on it. He's taught me a lot.
I'm a
think
better
of him-
person
Yeah.
for being in this group chat with him.
It's almost a problem. Like I definitely think in puns sometimes and have to turn it off.
Are you
here's-
the Burger King?
Here's a good one. I've got you kids are idiots.
He already
man.
mentioned
We
that
got
he likes
Brian Kachinsky
burgers.
Here, you're asking him questions about his dick and burgers. Here's a real question. A real question from Chris Sir. What's your craziest and luckiest bail?
Oh man. There's one in Grounded where I try to ice a rail
Oh yeah.
and I loop out.
Oh my God. What was
And
the
I did-
repercussions from that?
I broke my tailbone.
Oh,
So I broke
yeah.
but
It
I
looked like
coulda
you
got-
died.
Did you get like a horrible concussion or no?
No, not at all.
Wow, it
And
looks
so
And you had
so
no helmet
bad.
on either, huh?
No,
helmet.
and
Oh,
so that
so
was
gruesome.
super lucky. And I remember that was filming for Grounded, and I had a trip to Germany right after that. It was like a day or two after that, and I remember having to like sit on a plane for 9 hours on my fucking broken ass. But
If you break your tailbone, you might as well go home because you're going to be in
you were
brutal
riding with
pain
that?
for a
yeah,
while.
it was awful. And when I was in Germany, of course, the first day I slam on it and like lost my mind. But yeah.
Who's your favorite rider?
Favorite rider, man, that's tough. I can't pick one. Man, I'd say Jay Miron was definitely up there just because all around badass. Dave Frymouth for his technical and like combination of tech and burly.
Yeah.
On a ramp, more or less a ramp perspective, but he did some crazy street stuff too. Andy's a great friend of mine. Man, also Dennis Anderson, just like all around,
See,
just like
the real question was, who is your favorite rider's favorite rider? So now, who's Jay Miron's favorite rider?
Ooh.
It's someone. It's going to be someone I don't even know,
Yeah.
or it's got to be like John Heaton, maybe.
No.
No?
Jamie Ron's favorite
Just
rider.
immediately reject that.
Yeah, Jamie Ron's favorite rider would
he loved
be like,
Ruben.
Did you?
Ruben, it would probably be like Mike Dominguez.
Did you ever have a
Brian
threesome?
Blyther.
Did you ever have a threesome at Vancouver Metro Jam 2006?
No.
This sounds very specific.
I think I would remember. I think I would remember something like that. I think I might have toothpicked the fence at that contest, but no threesomes.
Here's a good one.
Not that time.
TRVPGHXSTPR. See, I hate you for your name. You whatever you. I hate you for having such a complicated name. They want to know what your favorite spot in Chicago is.
Riding spot.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say Clemente High School, and it's not like super crazy. It's just like a good meetup spot where everyone chills and hangs out, and there's like enough stuff there to mess around on, like benches and rails. And they actually, it was funny. It was one of those spots where they took out the rail, and we were all bummed. And then the next year, there used to be just one rail there. Now the next year they put in 5 rails where the rails are. So yeah, it's pretty badass. It's just fun. It's like a good meetup spot. And
Instead of asking you, do you burn the dope like that one kid said, I wish I had quoted this one from psych underscale
I was just looking at the same
Mach
thing.
Ting, all caps. How much loud pack do you blow down each and every day, motherfucker? That's even better. That was fucking awesome.
See, that's the other thing.
Motherfucker has 2 separate words too, which is that's an interesting choice.
One of the other things that I love about Brian is and the fact that he's from Chicago and he's so heavily involved in the Chicago, not only BMX scene, but like the culture of Chicago, because Brian's always going to these like cool events or parties, and because of the bakery, he knows all of these rappers. So we've got all these favorite rappers, Chief Keef, Lil Durk, King Louie, Katie Got Bands, all these artists that are we listen to all the time, and then Biz doesn't know any rap past like 1995, so
There's a lot of good stuff out
forgive
there.
him. But we're really big on these rappers, and BK will send us pictures of like him on stage at like a Chance the Rapper show. Like it's like you're in the mix. We love you being in the mix.
it's fun. I mean, it's just just being in any type of environment like that it's always fun. And yeah, I'm just lucky, man. I got friends that do a lot of cool, fun shit,
And you're making the most of it too, because it's like it's not like you're just,
dating some of them.
Yeah, you have dated rappers, true or false?
maybe.
You don't need to name them off, and it's not Nicki Minaj, and it's not Krayshawn, but
You act like there's a bunch. There was one.
there was one, right? But what was that like? Was it weird dating someone who was a rapper?
It was. I mean,
Were you ever super serious about it or not?
not really.
Okay.
And it was. It was a long time ago, but it was an interesting situation where it's like, kind of a semi-celebrity, whatever, blah blah blah. But it was just
it was
just
huge.
a
It was
weird,
huge for
For the group chat, yeah.
It was
that was
huge
right
for the
in
group chat.
When you're dating someone who's doing videos with riffraff while they're dating you, it's just the group chat needs to know about these kind of things.
I
It was
was
awesome.
in China at the time. My mind was melting. I was like waiting for every text to come back through Brian to let me know what's going on with this insane lifestyle he's living in Chicago.
I love it. Some kid said, "Why does Adam 22 like dick?" But he spelled "does" D-O-S-E.
You kids are morons. Seriously.
I don't know.
Your
And I
kids
don't know
are
how he
idiots.
would know.
Your kids are idiots. Something that I want to talk about, too, that Brian and I have touched on, because, like I've said, Brian and I have traveled so many places, and we've been to so many things, and I think I have a pretty good idea of what Brian's all about. But one of the things that we always got a big kick out of with Instagram was
The question?
The question. Well, with the question.
The specific
too,
phrasing of the question.
the question too. Brian. Please talk about this a little bit because this is obviously a pet peeve.
How does it go?
It's a pet peeve
like
of all of us.
It's like, I noticed that you ride plastic pegs. Is that because you like them? It's like it states something that's incredibly obvious and then asks a question as a follow-up that makes absolutely no sense.
Well, I guess the thing for me is like I can relate because when I was a kid, I'm sure I would have loved to. Granted, it was a different time, like where I wasn't able to ask my, like pros and stuff questions really because you didn't have access to them like today. But or just just anyone in general. It's just the internet's made it crazy. But the some of the ridiculous questions are so funny, and I don't get actually as upset as you think I get. But
I don't think you get upset.
I don't think
I
you
just
get-
think you're laughing.
I
at
get
them.
upset.
Yeah.
I legitimately get upset.
But I know, but it's just so funny because you'll be like, oh, having fun today riding in Chicago, and people will be like, oh, what city is this in? But I guess that's just Instagram. People don't read captions. But there's been some really incredible ones. Like there was the one where it was something like, Brian, I noticed that you nollie onto rails sometimes instead of bunny hopping onto them. Is there any particular reason for that?
Yeah. What is that?
Is there a particular reason?
And
why
it was so
nollie?
funny because it was at first glance seemed like a stupid question, but yet at the same time I'm like, well, that's actually like, I don't know. I was trying to think the positive of it, but it was just like, what do I even say?
Yeah, you
because
never know what's
I
gonna
like
be
to
their
respond to everyone. I like to.
But some
respond to
of some
everyone
of them
like
are so incredibly ridiculous. Like I remember
Yeah,
one.
you
It was
just
like
can't.
it was like your colorway. You had like the shoe box, like 2 shoe boxes, a brand new shoe on top of it. The logos are everywhere. My new colorway just came in. Second comment down. What kind of shoes are those? like, are you kidding me?
It's a good time, yeah.
Gosh.
All right, so we're already an hour and 28 minutes in if we don't remove anything. Let's end this. What should we get out of the way? What do we need to know about Brian Kachinsky going into 2015?
I guess
He's out here. He's doing rails. He's coming for your girlfriend, possibly. We don't know. We didn't cover that, no?
No,
Okay.
I'm off the market. But but it's going to be a crazy year. I would just I just got to give a thanks to everyone that supports me. Definitely Vans and GT and all my friends, everyone I ride with, obviously everyone I travel with and all that stuff. And 2015 is going to be a good one. I think I have a lot of ideas and a lot of things that hopefully will get to make happen, as well as the normal stuff that I do. So,
And what is your chosen social network if someone wants to get in touch with you? Instagram?
Instagram, yeah. I mean, all of them really. I think I'm on most of them, but
B. Kachinsky?
at B. Kachinsky on Instagram and Twitter. And then I have a Facebook page as well. Brian Kachinsky BMX is
And
the Facebook page.
The
also,
people
so-
of Chicago may see you roaming the streets in search of handrails and wax ledges and things such as that.
Very true.
Yes.
Quite
Hopefully
possibly.
more, yeah.
Or you could buy the Bikes Over Baghdad documentary on iTunes. You can see Brian Kachinsky in action.
I'm gonna do that.
And you should.
Yeah.
You should.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much to my co-hosts, Biz Jordan and Catfish.
Woo!
This has been ComeUp.com. Subscribe, follow us, all that bullshit. The Come Up BMX on Instagram. Boom. Thank you very much, BK. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right. We
Awesome.
good.
Take care.
Away from that.
Yeah.
So that's where it came from, dude. And like, it definitely I didn't think it would get as much backlash as it did, or create such a frenzy.
Right.
But it did, and I was like, okay, cool. Now I got to deal with it. No regrets at all.
But then that's the weird thing, too, is that we were talking about this earlier, is that when people start misconstruing what you say or taking some shit and thinking you're talking shit about Joe Rich or whatever, it's like, how do you respond? Because if you
can't, you really can't.
Like, because what do you do? Like, if you put up an Instagram about this thing that someone said, then you're putting their opinion on level with yours, and you don't want to write a fucking thing on your Twitter,
Right.
like, you know, because people.